The best closer, they're not willing to take a big risk on a company if the company doesn't have their shit together. If they're not in the right environment, if they're not in a company that is aggressive with their marketing, constantly putting out content and running webinars, running events, it's very hard as a closer to out-close the environment.
They're not set up for success.
So going through the interview process, you're interviewing them, but if you're interviewing a high performer, they're also interviewing the businesses. And high performers who have experience, they're making a bet on a company. A lot of founders who, they hate sales, they're like, hey, can you help us find a closer? Before they've even made a sale. I've never seen that end well.
How long do you put up with an underperforming closer?
There was a guy who messaged me the other day, said, my closer, he needs some training. His attitude's a little bit pessimistic. He needs some help with like digging for pain and going a bit deeper. Dude, you need a fucking new closer. This guy's got to go. The best thing about sales is you can't hide. It's easy to manage people. There's no emotion.
Numbers don't lie.
No emotion. Nah, numbers don't lie. Can't hide.
Welcome back to another episode of Founders Playbook. Today's guest is the legend behind Australia's leading recruited and training of high-performance remote sales teams. He's trained over 1,000 remote sales students, generated over 100 million in sales for businesses. He's the founder of the Remote Sales Institute, and he's here to break down how to build a world-class remote sales team. Please welcome the legend, the incredible Kris Cochrane.
Thank you so much, Nelson. It's such a pleasure to be here, man.
Tell us straight off the bat, what does it take to build an 8-figure sales team?
There's a few moving parts to it. So in my experience, there are three keys. So you have the people behind what you do, the people on the team. So you got to have A players. So again, when you're looking at people, a lot of the mistakes that business owners make, they hire someone who's just never going to be a 10 out of 10. So they're hiring 4 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10. With training, they're trying to get them to a 10, but it's just not going to happen. So in my experience, having someone who has the right attitude, the right skill set, the right training behind them to get them on the team, coming batteries included, is super important. So people. Process is number 2, where process includes your sales process, but also the business process. So having leads and marketing. You can't really run an 8-figure sales team without good lead flow, really good marketing. But if you have good lead flow and good marketing, you need to have a dialed-in sales process. Dialed-in sales process involves, whether you're using appointment setting scripts, frameworks in your CRM, super key, and then finally performance, man. So performance is how are you leading and managing those people, and how are you training them consistently on the product, on the process that you've gotten there. So whenever I'm looking at a business and who's not performing, it's either one of 3 mistakes or problems. That they've got the wrong people. They don't have any people. It's the founder selling, and they need the people. They have got the right people, but those people are winging it and just have no process, and it's a shambles. It's a bit of a shit show. Or finally, they've got the right people. They've got a process, but the people just aren't performing to their full potential because they're not being led and managed properly or trained properly. So I don't know, man. That's hopefully that's a succinct answer for you. It's a pretty wide topic.
You have trained 8-figure sales teams. You have led them, and you have trained over 1,000 remote sales people at this point, right? So you have seen almost everything in this space, right?
Yeah.
In your experience, what makes a top 1% closer?
I think there's a few characteristics. A closer has to have authority, and that doesn't necessarily need to be authority in the subject or the subject matter of what they're selling. So a property, some of the top closers knew nothing about property or had very little relevance to property, but they spoke with such conviction that the prospects just immediately assumed that they were an expert in what they were selling. The other thing that a closer does that maybe an appointment setter or someone who's more entry level doesn't do is they are willing to challenge. They're willing to challenge a prospect. So they're not disagreeable, but they're definitely not agreeable. And so a lot of salespeople fall into the friend zone with a prospect. They want to build a relationship. They want to make a new friend. a really good closer knows that people didn't come to that call for a new friend. They came to solve a problem. And often solving a problem involves investing a lot of cash, which also involves getting out of the comfort zone. And no one loves living outside their comfort zone. So closers who are top performers are willing to challenge and hold their clients or their prospects to a high standard.
When a business owner is looking for top closers, what should they be looking for?
Well, number one will be their track record. So if you're looking for a top closer, you want to see someone who has runs on the board. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they've converted lots of sales in the exact niche that you're working in, but what is the track record of results that they've achieved for other companies? A lot of people talk a big game, but very few have put big runs on the board in past sales roles. And there are many closers who are really top performing, who haven't necessarily worked in a high ticket sales role or a closing role. I work with mostly online businesses who are running digital marketing, and they're selling high ticket products and services. So they're 3K or above. And most of the sales process is done over Zoom or the phone. A lot of top closers that become top closers haven't necessarily closed in that specific environment, but they bring a track record of being a high performer in previous roles. So in my experience, whether that's sporting achievements, whether that's being the top of the leaderboard in you were selling insurance and you were just continually smashing results, or you're selling something else, or you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, and you've gotten excellent results in business. People who have been high performers and demonstrated that they've been a high performer, that's the number one thing I'm looking for is someone who's got that high performer mindset. And then after that, it's, do they know the sales process? Do they know sales psychology? Have they, do they know how a high ticket sales process generally works?
And definitely have some questions around that segment, but just to get everyone on the same page, coming from an absolute expert, in your opinion, what would classify as a top closer? Like, what kind of revenue should they be collected for you to say, yeah, this guy's a stud, he's a top closer?
He's an animal.
Yeah, and what would that represent as well in terms of revenue or commissions that they will get paid on a monthly basis?
All right, so if we start at commissions, you've got, your entry level closers are typically earning 10K a month on an offer, and that offer, they might be to generate that, they might be generating 100K of revenue in a month. Generally, it's 10%. Absolute stud. You got studs who are generating 300-400K a month, and it depends on the offer as well. There are companies that are selling lower ticket stuff. You might have fitness, or you might have personal development, non-financial revenue sort of offers, which are lower ticket, but you have savage performers on there, but they might only be generating 150 to 200K a month in revenue. Generally, the best closers are sort of around that 30, 40, 50K in commissions, which means they're sort of generating 300 to 500K per month or more.
That's what in one of the masterminds that I'm in, there is a lot of $1 million a month earners and so on, that they have a lot of like big sales teams.
Yeah.
They were saying like, hey, if you're thinking of a top closer, someone that wants to make 10K, that's not what it is. Like, you gotta be thinking like the bare standard for a top closer now is like 20K is bare minimum.
For a
right?
top closer, a top closer, like top closers are looking for 30, at the moment, and 20Ks. I wouldn't say it's definitely not entry level. It's a damn good.
It's good.
It's damn good income, but the absolute studs out there, they're producing a lot more, which I think is a good sign in this online space as well. There's a lot of companies that they've got their marketing dialed. They've got a good lead flow. The founders are out there creating lots of content, which is creating more trust in the marketplace. So it's such an ecosystem. A great closer can only do so much as well. You have the best closer, which is the best person with a great with great skills and training. But if they're not in the right environment, which is the process part, if they're not in a company that is aggressive with their marketing, that has, content teams, and that isn't like constantly putting out content and running webinars, running events to put more trust in the marketplace, running, having a podcast. It's very hard as a closer to out close the environment
They're
that
not
you're
set
in.
up for success.
And there's so many examples of that with founders and business owners who just aren't serious, and they've got a lifestyle business. But if you have a top closer, they need to be in an environment where you've got business owners and the other people on the team who share those values. So that's why very hard to attract an A player if you're in a B player business, essentially.
Yes, absolutely. What do you see as well in terms of, because we'll definitely get to that part of the retention side, right?
Yep.
But how do you manage, because you also help business owners like acquire top talent, right? To help them close more and
Yep.
scale the business and all of that. How do you manage when you get a founder or a business owner that they're not making content, they're still, or barely posting, they have some level of paid ads and stuff, they have very cold leads coming through, and they come to you and say, Kris, give me closers that are gonna be, taking us to $1 million months or whatever. Like, how do you deal in that case where you can see, well, man, you don't even have the environment for them to win,
Yeah, it's like if I was a consultant to the F1 and there was a team like Red Bull wanted me to hire them a Formula One driver, but the driver was going to be driving a go-kart. Like, they're just not going to win the race. It doesn't matter how good the driver is.
Yeah.
They're in the wrong environment. They're in the wrong process, the wrong system. So, working with a company, we work with companies. We have another company, Beyond Closes, which does work with businesses and helps them find talent. It helps them build the processes required for top performers to succeed. But if a business doesn't have their leads dialed in, if they don't have good marketing, if they don't have good process, then it's very unlikely that it's very unusual for them to find someone who actually wants to be part of it. Because what you'll find is as if you're a business owner, you're going through the interview process. A lot of the time, you're interviewing them, but if you're interviewing a high performer, they're also interviewing the businesses. And high performers who have experience, they ask a lot of questions because they know, especially in this space where a lot of them are earning commission only, they're making a bet on a company, and they're not willing to take a big risk on a company if the company doesn't have their shit together. And so you'll lose out on finding star performers. And so B player businesses often find B player salespeople, which sometimes is the right thing. Sometimes as a business owner, if you're just growing, if you're brand new, if you don't have your shit together, you need time to get your shit together and you're learning, it's probably not the best thing for you to find like a stud, because that person is just going to drive you up the wall. They'll be constantly dissatisfied.
Imagine as well, just when a business wants to attract dream customers, that they have to reflect that in their marketing, in their engagement, in their first presentation with them on the sales process, right? The same thing is for team members. You got to sell them on why they should bet on you, right? Why are you the right team to jump on and to assist to the best of your ability, right?
For sure. You should always spend we've got, I did a podcast yesterday with a guy, Marty Amos, who runs a company called The Professional Builder, and they're about to hit, I think they're up to 20 mil at the moment, 25 mil, coaching company based in NZ, absolute killers. And his leadership team, they have a mandate. They've got to spend 30% of their time on recruiting for their department. And if they're not looking, then it's just filling their bench. And, so what is 30%? What is that? 1 day a week, maybe 1.5 days a week, fully dedicated to recruitment. And even if you're not looking, because as a business, you need to constantly be, the game is won in the draft. The game is won in who you're picking, how are you identifying talent? Because the difference between a B player and an A player, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could be the profit. And so many times you speak to a business owner, because I'm in some masterminds. I'm known as a sales expert. So often there'll be questions. There was a guy who messaged me the other day, said, I was referred to you. I need some sales training for I've got it here. I've given Bailey my phone, but it was, I've got a guy, I've got my closer. He's he needs some training. His attitude's a little bit pessimistic. He needs some help with like digging for pain and going a bit deeper. He needs a bit more help with objection handling. He's a little bit down and out, and it just went on and on and on. And I was like, dude, you need a fucking new closer. You don't need training. This guy's got to go.
You're trying to fix this thing so hard.
You're trying to, again, you're trying to win. You've got an F1 car, but you're trying to win it with a dude who's just come off the street. So that can happen as well. People are trying to fix the unfixable when you just need to replace that. And the difference for him, you're constantly training, your numbers are no good, you're maybe not profitable, or you break even, you're constantly frustrated with the numbers, you think the marketing's bad, you start to try to troubleshoot marketing, you try to troubleshoot the funnel, all of these things. And if you just had a good person in there, like a killer, it just completely transforms your business. I've seen it so many times where a business will replace a good salesperson with a great salesperson, and it totally just flips their business on its head. And it's like a great realization. It's the big wake up call. They're like, fuck. It was that simple, but they were scrambling to solve the problem, but it was really that one person. So yeah, you should always be very, very careful with who you're hiring, and and have really high standards, and hold people accountable to those.
I'm curious to ask you as well, at what point you have seen, based on your experience, that a founder-led sales should change to having now a closer? What's usually like the revenue range that you see on average at that point that it makes sense, right? Yeah. Assuming that an offer is operating at a very high level, all the fulfillment side is sorted, there's good lead flow and marketing, but it's founder-led sales. At what point do you see that and you recommend like, yeah, dude, you need to be getting a closer to replace you?
So the best time to hire a closer is when, especially as a founder-led sales, if you're currently on the sales calls, it's when taking sales calls is costing the business more money. So you being on the sales calls is taking away from revenue driving activities, marketing. Generally, you need to have delegated everything that's non-revenue producing, such as your fulfillment, all of your operations. If you've delegated those things and you still have a full calendar, generally that happens around 150K or 100K a month. You've delegated student success or client success. You've delegated operations. There's admin. You've got support everywhere. So the things that are in your calendar, they are sales calls. But what you're not doing, maybe you're not on podcasts, you're not producing content, so you're getting less eyeballs. So that's stunting the business's growth. That's a time to delegate sales and look to find someone to close, because generally there's lower downside to delegating all your other things in your business. It's less risk, because if someone comes in and then your conversion rate drops 50%, then you might not have a business. So you need to hold on to it. Generally, they need to hold on to it until it's generally the last thing that they delegate. And I've seen that, let's say 150K, 100K to 150K. It could be earlier. It's just, if you're only generating 70,000 in revenue, then you might have to find a part-timer or someone to come in and work part-time. 7K a month might not be enough to hire a good closer full-time. So yeah, I'd say around those averages. And then the highest leverage thing you can do as a founder is sales calls, and then there reaches a point where it's not. And then the highest leverage thing you can do is to manage the sales team, is to hire a good team and manage the team. But I've seen so many, I've seen a lot of founders who they hate sales. They hate sales. And the first thing they want to do is before they've even made a sale, they're like, hey, I've got this new business idea. Can you help us find a closer? I'm not good at sales, so I need to find someone who's good at sales so that we can sell my offer. And that's super common because often they're a coach or they're a service provider. They hate sales. But yeah, that's the biggest mistake you could make as a founder is to not actually be on the front line. And I've never seen that end well.
Now, let's just imagine that someone is going to the process of getting a top closer, right? How do you normally start that process? What does it look like in terms of recruitment?
So you need to define the role. You need to define the role, and you need to design the comp plan. So what's the scope of the role? What do you need them to do? What are you expecting them to do? So you need to have a clear understanding of what that looks like. So job description is a big one. Most companies, especially new startups or businesses in this online space, a lot of them don't have any job descriptions. All their employees they don't have a job description. So it's very hard to manage them. So you need to get clear on what are the responsibilities and what are the KPIs that they will need to achieve, and how will you measure success? Because that's a question you're going to get asked throughout the interview process as well. And also, salespeople come in, and if you want them to be on weekly meetings or daily meetings, if you want them to do, be responsive on Slack, if you want them to, sometimes if a closer needs to do some prospecting, if their calendar isn't full, that has to all be outlined first. Because often salespeople, if they don't have a full calendar, sometimes they'll just go, all right, I'll just take the day off and go to the beach, which just needs to be understood before you bring someone on. So number one would be define the role. And then number two is define the recruiting criteria that you want to hire on. So what are your values as a company? What are you looking for in the recruit? Skill set, the mindset, the attitude, experience. What are you looking for with experience? So being clear on what that looks like before you go to market is always really important. And then, man, just writing a dope ad, like writing an ad that really just represents who you are as a company. Not overselling yourself, but that's another big mistake is companies will oversell the opportunity. But just writing a good ad that just gets the attention, like it's marketing. And then just fishing where people hang out, man. Most closers aren't looking on Seek. Most closers are not looking on Seek.
That just broke so much.
Yeah. Most closers are not looking on Seek. And look, you can do that. Seek is still Seek is not a strategy. I'll say that. Seek is not a good recruiting strategy. So it can work though. You can lightning can strike. You can find a good closer on Seek. Many people have. And it's always good, you may as well throw an ad up. But you've got to be really proactive with your outreach as a founder. You need to be putting that ad in places where closers hang out. So communities like our community, for example, we have hundreds of salespeople. Many of those people have gone through really significant training. Many of them are graduated and they've now had 12 months, 2 years of actual practice in roles, and they might be open to roles, open to a new opportunity. So going to places like Remote Sales Institute, there's others out there where, you might build a relationship with the company and ask if you can post the ad there. Brother, and then recruitment wise, the recruiting process needs to be pretty dialed. So that's advertising. So getting the role, understanding what the role is, super clear on what you're going to look for throughout interviews, having a great marketing strategy and making sure that you're putting that advertisement in the right spots, and then just having a good interview process, just being clear on the questions you're going to ask, and you always want to try before you buy as well. So if you're hiring a sales rep without actually hearing a sales call that they've completed or role playing with them, you'll often get burnt. It's a big one.
Now, on that part, right, which is, let's just say you managed to get the attention of some top closers, you're getting candidates. Now, on the interview process, right, or making the decision, hey, should we even bring him on, give him a trial, whatever. What are 3 secret tactics that you use to identify a high-performing closer?
3 secret tactics to identify. I mean, I think number one is just having a
during the interview.
During the interview. Yeah. So during the interview, I guess the first tactic is getting them to be really specific about the numbers that they've produced. So a lot of closers will they'll tell you what they've done. They'll tell you the process that, they've taken sales calls, they've done this, they've done that. But if you really want to put them on the spot, you need to quantify the numbers that they've achieved. What numbers have you achieved? And what was your best month in terms of revenue? How many deals was that? With that, what was your favorite? What was the most memorable deal that you've closed? What are some of the objections you used to get? Let's go through that. Let's go through that right now. Okay, so I'm a prospect. Man, this is expensive. Like, I'm probably gonna have to go think about this. Put them on the spot. How would you handle that? So, number one, catching them out on any BS. So there are great closers and great people out there who, if they are great, they'll just know their numbers. Most great closers will know their numbers. Number two, go and just make sure you put them on the spot and make sure you put them through a role play. And then always check references. Always check references. So many business, mate, no one, I don't know what the deal is, but very few businesses check references. It's like it's like you're getting on Airbnb and you're not looking at the reviews. You wouldn't go and eat at a restaurant unless you check the reviews first. You're in a new town.
Yeah.
You don't know where to eat. What do? You look through, you check the reviews. So checking references. As a founder, you're so busy. Someone you like the person. You like them. They sound legit. So you hire them. Then it all blows up. And if you had checked a reference, you might have understood exactly some of the things that you need to watch for so often.
And in your experience as well, when you get a top closer, let's just say that it's still high ticket offer, right? They come from high ticket experience. In most cases, you will be able to just train them on the offer, right? As long as it's not like a very technical, I'm guessing, or very unique knowledge that
there's very few places that you need. Like, so many founders will think that they need someone who's an expert in their field.
In the field, yeah.
So many. We recruited for a property, actually one of Australia's top buyers agents, and he won buyers agent of the year. Recruited a closer for him, and they're crushing it. He's such a great business, such a great dude. But he was on all the calls still, so he was taking the calls, and he was taking his clients through prospects through 90-minute, basically full strategy sessions where he would just break down everything they needed to do, told them the full playbook, exactly what you need to do. So deep knowledge, got into the weeds on the sales calls, and had it in his mind that was what was required to sell his offer. And he had to learn. We were telling him that, dude, the way you're selling is great, but there's more ways to skin a cat. And don't get correlation causation. The reason why people are buying is probably not because you're taking them through that 90-minute portfolio review and exactly what they're going to need to do. Because that should be behind a paywall. They should have to pay to get what they're getting on that first call. There's a much better way, much more easy way to replicate. But he was pretty convinced that he needed the subject matter expert. So that's what our first rounds of interviews with candidates were property experts, property nerds. We'll put them on the spot with role plays. Dude, they went to water. They were terrible. Terrible. Absolutely atrocious. And so I was like, dude, can we interview a couple of salespeople? Can I just, humor me a little bit? Can I just put a couple of guys in front of you? You're like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. And of course they knocked his socks off. So we just got them to listen to podcasts that he's got so much content out there. Yeah. We just got them to listen to some podcasts, get really dialed in. The guy who we hired, he'd bought 1 or 2 properties in the past, but not like deep property investment specific strategy. Just had bought like an owner rock that he lived in and whatever. And that was the guy we hired, and he's crushing it, man. The guy's at 80% conversion rate, 85% something. So
that's good.
Yeah, and it was just funny because we both laughed.
That's founder type close, right?
It is. Yeah. Well, his leads are so high.
Yeah.
So they're all organic. He doesn't run ads.
Lay down deals.
Yeah, man, they're fucking lay downs. But he was closing at 80%, and his calendar was so stacked. And because he was taking people through 90-minute sessions, he was going on journeys with him. He was educating them. He was giving them everything. It was so draining for him. And he was the guy is creaming it. So he's now opened up. It's just changed his life, and he's so happy to pay the commissions. But the new sales guy has literally come in and just has the same conversion rate as the founder, but has no relevance to property.
So then you just remove that education element that the founder tends to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's more about like just focus more on the problems,
focus
right?
on them, get them to talk.
Yeah.
Get them to. You still need to understand the product. You still need to really understand like what a great closer. Another thing a great closer has is they will develop deep product knowledge, not about the industry or about the strategy, but they will develop very deep knowledge around all of the people in that business that you've helped. So all of your case studies, all of your testimonials. So instead of handling an objection with logic, you're saying, cool, well, such and such, who we worked with last year, and they were in a similar position as you, and here's what we did with it for them, and here's the result that they've achieved. And maybe they fit the same demographic. You know, maybe they're a lesbian couple, and we had a lesbian couple that we work with someone who's similar, or someone who comes from the same background, some sort of ethnic background, or someone in the similar industry. We had a doctor. You're a doctor. We had a doctor. Actually, we worked with a doctor. Last year, I think it was October. Here's what we did for that person. Similar situation to you. Absolutely crushed it. Here's the testimonial. Here's the result. So a really good closer can join the dots as well. And that's the thing that you need to understand. So you don't need to become we'll talk about, you don't need to become a property expert, but you need to become an expert of the company.
And
so you can join the dots.
And understanding as well what you have at your disposal, right? As ammunition that they can use basically, and how to make it accessible, which is my next part that I wanted to ask you, right? So you go through the interview process. Let's just say you do manage to spot some top closers, right? To bring in. What are the best practices to onboard and test a top closer for a business?
Well, there's a few mistakes that people will make. So I'll start with the mistake. Like number one is just letting them loose straight away onto calls. So if let's say you're a founder-led business, the mistake that I've seen people make is they go, cool, I'm out of here. And they just hand all the calls across.
Off you go.
Yeah, there you go. And then they go, and then the month, they're like, where are all the sales? So gradually increasing the call volume is huge. Another mistake is just failing to consistently train. So consistently review calls, consistently offer support, especially for remote businesses who you're on Zoom, you're on Slack, but now you've got all this time back. And so you've just gone to do your thing and you've got a salesperson, maybe you have a call once a week. A new salesperson needs to be nurtured, even if they're experienced. They need to have multiple calls every day, multiple check-ins, multiple call reviews. You really have to course correct them really quickly. So you have to provide them a really clear, lots of hand holding in the first 30 days is key. First 30 days. I guess another mistake is just not tracking the things that you said that you hired on. So if you hired on attitude, if you hired on attitude and the attitude starts to dip or the attitude starts to become negative, a lot of founders will just kind of cop that early days. So you just need to course correct people, skill set, the results, but also the way they're showing up.
Aside from ROAS, which is one of the metrics that most business owners will be looking at, right, to see what's the return that they're getting, what are the three main metrics that you should be tracking on a top closer to know if they are even performing?
So I think show rate's a big. So I'll start with show rate, which is not one that you'd normally put that on a company. So the show rate to calls. Top closers have high show rates. Why? Because they follow up people who are no shows, and a lot of closers they'll have a resistance to doing that. So if people aren't their show rates are low, and so they'll blame the company. But the best closers follow up, and of course then conversion rate and cash collection. So conversion rate, how many of the deals that show up are you actually closing, and how much of if you have an offer where you can either pay in full or pay in installments, how much cash is being collected up front. So those, I'd say, the two main ones though, close rate and cash collection. We measure deal to close as well. So you can encompass your conversion rate, your show rate and your close rate into one metric, which is deal to close. So a deal is someone who's been qualified through the setting process or through your marketing process, who's been deemed to be a qualified lead or qualified opportunity that goes into the closest pipeline. How many of those, because you might have multiple appointments, you might have people no-show, you might have cancellations, but how many of those deals turn into a sale? So your deal win rate it's like the God metric in my world. It's just, you can't hide from a deal to close.
In terms of as well, the top closers coming, right? And you set up the clear KPIs as to what's expected from them. How long do you put up with an underperforming closer?
With your ramp up, I'd say 30 calls. Like you need to give someone 30 calls, around about 30 calls, to give them enough opportunity to learn the offer, to make the mistakes, to get in up to KPI. When someone loses form, if they're out of form, you've got to have your qualitative and quantitative data. So your quantitative, it could be, conversion rate is dropped. If you've got someone who's really showing, they're qualitatively, their attitude, they're showing up with desire, hunger to grow, they're putting their hand up, they're saying, hey, I need to change. They're messaging you on Slack to say, hey man, hey, I'm a little bit out of my normal rhythm. Do you have any suggestions? You've got someone who's very proactive about, like, that's a positive attitude. So you would probably persist with that person a bit longer than someone who their conversion rate dips plus their attitude is gone out the window as well. How long is that? Not super long. Like, you shouldn't see a closer they might have a poor month, but a really good closer will have one poor month and the next month they'll put runs on the board. Maybe they close from pipeline. A few weeks to a month. And companies who put up with underperformance for months on end, they're bashing their head against a wall.
Can you give a real life example of you watching this in terms of closer coming and exact KPIs that we're giving? And then how did you go about identifying, like, yeah, he's underperforming, and what did you do after to handle?
I've managed a bunch of sales teams. The last company that I had, or that I was leading the sales team before this, we went through a bunch. So we had a dude called, I won't mention his name, but we had a guy who was a bit of an older dude, came with a fair bit of experience. He ramped up pretty well, but he was probably a little bit under some of he was under some of the top guys, but he was at a level where, if you gave him leads, if you gave him some sales calls, he'd convert, say, 30% of those, where the other guys might have been 35 or 38. His performance started to dip a little bit. We'd have a month where it was at 25. But the problem was, when I'd have one-on-ones with him, he just wasn't taking any ownership. There was blame on the leads. There's blame on he wasn't getting as many calls as the other guys. So it was more of his attitude, the fact that he wasn't hitting the numbers. He wasn't super far off, but he was enough off where it was a bit of a challenge. But then it was just the attitude. So I'm honestly, if you've got someone who's been at a level and then they have a dip in their performance and their attitude is still rock solid, then you just have to work. You have to work with them through it. But if both of those things go, the numbers and the attitude, he was gone. He was gone. You've got to hold people to. The best thing about sales is you can't hide. So it's easy to manage people. There's no emotion.
Numbers don't lie.
No emotion. Nah, numbers don't lie. Can't hide.
Now, you get the top closer, right? How do you retain a top closer?
You just have to feed them with deals, man. They have to make money. So there's the conditions of your business. So if you've got you got an offer and then you go through a bumpy patch with leads. Maybe your VSL funnel stops working. So you are sending lead magnet or ebook leads into the business and it's just all garbage or it's not garbage, but it's a lower hit rate. And there's just, you hit with no shows. They've got a calendar full of people who don't show. They're not converting as high. The conversations are shit. So you just have to keep the marketing going and you have to do whatever you can to make sure the quantity and quality of leads that you're producing is consistent. For a top performer, the only thing, in my experience, the only thing they're worried about is making money. So the only problem you'll have is not they're working too much or, other things are wrong. The culture's a bit shit. It's really the only problem they're going to come to you with is I'm not making the cash that I need to make. Or it'd be, hey, I want to make more money. They want to negotiate. So I've had that a few times where you've got a closer who wants to negotiate. And sometimes as a business owner, you get annoyed and pissed off, but it can be a trait of high performers. They just want more money. They want to earn money. So anything that's going to take food off their table and going to put them in a position where they're not earning as much as they were, it generally comes down to that. You can have as many Christmas parties and you can do as many culture activities for the really top performers. It doesn't matter if they're not making the cash that they wanted to make, they'll still leave. But I think things like, making sure that you do invest in your people, investing in culture. There are so many online companies out there that are only focused on numbers, that have zero care for their people. So that would be secondary to making sure they're earning good money.
What they want to make.
Yeah, which is then as a company owner, your only job is just to fill the calendars. Marketing, produce content, make sure that the leads are sound, make sure the funnels are tight.
Then you'll get happy closers.
You'll get a happy closer. You'll have a happy life.
Yeah, happy closer, happy business, right?
Happy closer, happy life. Exactly.
Now, in terms of compensation, bonuses, and incentives for top closers, what does that look like?
It's most average around the 10%. 10% is give or take, depending on what your offer is worth. So if you've got a lower ticket offer, let's say it's 4K or 3K, it could be even up to 15%. I think generally you want to be paying a closer around a minimum $500 per sale. So if you've got a 3K offer, then you're going to probably pay more than 10% of that offer to hire a good closer. If you've got a 20 or 30 or 40K offer, it's going to be less than 10% generally. Could be 6%, could be 7%, because the amount per sale is going to be much higher, greater. On average, you're sitting in that 10% range. So if you can just allocate in your P&L to have 10% go to closers and then up to 5% up to appointment setters, that's the way that we operate. We budget for 10% to closers and 5% to appointment setters. And
on cash collection.
On cash collection. Yeah, in cash collection. Exactly.
How does that change if you have a one-time $10,000 offer to a $100,000 offer that gets paid over several months?
So if you've got an upfront, it's pretty simple, straightforward. You just pay it on cash collection. If you've got an MRR, like a recurring revenue offer, we just normally recommend working on a fixed fee for the sale. So if it's 100K, let's say it's for 2 years, the average LTV or the average stay is 2 years and it's $4,000 a month for 2 years. And so over the course of that month, over the course of 2 years, you're getting 100K. You might negotiate 3K, 4K, 2K to the closer. It also depends on volume. So, and because you're paying the closer up front, and if it's, maybe you might have someone who cancels early, you're taking a bit of a risk by paying that up front. Generally, it's less than 10%. Definitely less than 10% that you'd pay.
For those type of deals.
Yeah, for those. So just to negotiate a fixed fee, something that feels good for you as a business owner and something that they are satisfied with as well. We've worked with lots and lots of companies that have MRRs. Normally the LTV is maybe 20 or 30K. And the fee that they would pay a closer to sell that is between 1,000 and 2,000.
And
upfront.
Then let's say one point that you mentioned there, right? That is that you might be selling a deal that is 100 plus K, whatever, right?
Yep.
But then there might be a section on the contract or deal where the person can cancel, right? If you
Yeah.
don't deliver or
Yeah.
you don't fill your promise or whatever. And obviously there is the option of assuming the risk fully and just paying the closer, whatever you
Clawback.
agree.
Yeah. So you're
right?
talking about clawback. So there's a point at which it goes from a sales problem to a fulfillment problem, and that
Mhm.
point can vary for companies. So generally, we've got a 45-day clawback. So if a salesperson makes a sale within the first 45 days, if the customer refunds or if we refund the client, you can argue it's a sales problem because we brought the wrong person in, and it's just written to their contract. We claw it back off their next invoice. But anything past 45 days, if you're trying to claw back 12 months down the track from someone who refunds,
Yeah.
it doesn't sit well with salespeople. It creates a bit of bad blood. So I think having a clean contract and a clear agreement as well, that's probably another tip for people, is you need to have really clear terms when you're going into a relationship with a salesperson.
So
in my
then
opinion.
there's the 45-day. That's pretty much good enough time to know.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I've had it before where it's just hasn't been written to an agreement, and then we've had refunds, and it's been we've clawed it back from salespeople, and there's been revolt, uproar. Again, like I'll say, I bring it back to closers. Good closers, high performers, they are focused on earning money. They love they love companies and they love products, they love culture, but their number one priority is to earn money. And if you take that away unexpectedly and it hasn't been express agreed upon, it can cause some issues.
In regards of offers, right? Let's just say that a company has two different offers, kind of the same thing, but one is maybe a 6-figure offer, one is a 5-figure offer, right? And you're trying to, let's say that in one case, you're trying to sell the 6-figure offer.
Yep.
How do you prevent closers using the other one as a downsell because maybe they get too lazy or they go like, oh, I know this is gonna be easier to sell this one, right? So how do you prevent that from happening?
Oh, I mean, that comes down to quality control, and that just comes down to listening to calls. You can do sales operations where you're reviewing applications, and you might, if you have someone who writes an application, or if you've got an application before your sales call, you should be able to qualify people before the sales call as to where they're going to fit. And so if you've got consistently people whose application fits the 6-figure offer being sold the 5-figure offer, then you've got a problem. You'll have to go through and listen to calls. So listening to sales calls is nothing that founders could do for their sales team that would have a higher impact than listen to sales calls. Yet most founders are too busy. We get stuck into the day-to-day. We're stuck doing everything but quality control of our sales team. So if you can allocate at least an hour a day, just whether that's on your sales team meeting, if you're running the sales team meetings, my recommendation is when you get to at least 200K a month and you've got a sales team of 3 to 4 plus, daily meetings that go for an hour, that focus on projections and numbers first, and energy, and sharing client wins so that you fill them with confidence, and then spending the last half of that hour, sometimes 40 minutes, on a training and listening to a sales call. If you do that every day, your sales team will just outperform every month. It will consistently get better and better.
In terms of, as well, training placement of a top closer that will be closing a 100K offer, is that much different to a closer that will be closing 10K offer?
I don't think so, man. I honestly don't think so. It will come down to qualification. Often 100K clients are easier to sell than 5K clients. So one of the I guess a hack is if you find someone who's been in an offer, a B2C fitness offer, and they've had to go back, they've gone into war to sell a 3K offer to someone who's broke, or to prospects who are broke generally. And they've sharpened their objection handling. They've got great results, then they step into this other environment where they're working with businesses or company or people who they've got money. And if the offer fits, often selling a 100K offer is not much different, if not sometimes easier.
Now, we haven't discussed anything about setters, right?
Yeah.
When should you be looking for a setter instead of a closer?
Well, in some cases, you need to get a setter first. So if you get a closer to alleviate your calendar. So if you as a founder-led sales, or if you're selling as a founder and your calendar is jammed, the first thing you probably need to delegate is closing. If you need more appointments from the leads that you're getting, so if you want to increase your dollar per lead ratio or dollars per lead, if you need to extract more from the ad spend that you currently have, then often it's just setting more appointments from the leads that you have. So getting more efficient with your pipeline is probably key. So increasing your ROAS, increasing all of your metrics improve when you start to, if you put an appointment setter in who's tapping into opt-ins, whereas previously your closers were only dealing with booked appointments and nothing was happening with opt-ins or nothing was happening with no-shows. If you can really get dialed in at the top of the funnel, it's just all your metrics start to improve. So I'd say most businesses should have a 1-to-1 ratio. You hire an appointment setter to increase the efficiency, then that increases your calendar appointments. Your calendars will then get stacked and you're really busy, so then you hire a closer. And then the next thing is you want to keep that closer stacked. So you want to hire another appointment setter to keep, or maybe you increase your ad spend. So then you get more leads. So the next person you hire is an appointment setter. And then that's the way it would generally work.
Now we need to address the big elephant in the room.
Oof. Where is he?
AI versus human appointment setter.
Oh, wow. Spicy. Dude, I mean, I train humans and I've been through appointment setting processes with AI. I randomly get calls for some reason from clients that I've worked with. I must be on their database. I got one like 2 weeks ago from a property company and I had a call and it was an AI appointment setter. Its job was to qualify me and get my interest levels up to where I had to book an appointment. It was so bad. So yeah, I mean, if you want to book a haircut, if you want someone to like confirm your webinar registrations, AI could definitely work. And if you've got some basic chatbot, like if you want someone to open your DMs, if you want a tool to open your DMs, like all the new followers, and you want it to open authentically, you can use AI. In my experience, AI has nowhere near the emotional intelligence to hold a good conversation, to keep someone engaged on the DMs, or certainly not over the phone. AI is at a good level, but it's very easy to hear it. And as soon as you hear that you're talking to AI, you just disconnect. Because when you're selling a high ticket service or high ticket product, trust is key. Trust is super key. It's not so anything with commodity or like I said, everyday functions like you want to increase your webinar attendance, so you get AI to go through and call everyone to say, hey, you just want to confirm, remind you about tomorrow night. AI is awesome, but not for setting appointments. Dude, I tell you what, appointment setter, it's very bloody hard to find great talent. It's the hardest, in our experience, it's the hardest role to recruit for. And it's also the hardest to retain. And it requires a really high level of skill set for them to get great results.
Why is that?
Well, it's hard to recruit for because often appointment setters, there's not a lot of career appointment setters who have been in 5 different roles. So they've got a clear track record of appointment setting. So it's not as easy as going, cool, show me all your appointment setting experience. Often they're coming from a different industry or they're coming from a different background. So you have to assess them on their merit or their communication skills and their attitude. So it is hard to find it's hard because you can't compare, and it's just not as easy to say, hey, this person has a clear track record. So the other thing as well is it's lower paid, but it's also higher work. And if you want good people in this role, which you do, you want salespeople in this role, you've got to find the balance between base salary, commissions, high earning potential. Yeah, so they're also often they'll be less risk. They'll be more risk averse than a closer because they're less prone to making. They're less prone to commission only roles. And then it is a grind, man. The role it can be a grind. It can be relentless. You're just having the same conversations day in, day out. High output required, high activities are required to really hit numbers consistently. And it might be 1-2 years before someone really progresses. And so for that reason, retention can be challenging to really retain those great setters. And then when you turn over an appointment setter, fuck, your business feels it big time, especially a good appointment setter. You got to go back to market. You got to refine that next person. You got to then train them. There's so much to learn as an appointment setter. There's so much around prospecting strategies, being able to triage properly, setting good appointments that show up and convert. There's so much to it. So for that reason, it used to be 3%. We'd say 3% to appointment setters. It was always the thing. When I went through and learned high ticket, it was, appointment setters 3%, 2.5%, whatever. They'd be commission only, or you might pay them $1,000 a month plus 2% or 3%. Dude, now it's like 5% we budget for, sometimes even more. 60, 70, 80K base plus commission. A lot of appointment setters, there are companies out there paying 140, 150K to appointment setters. Because the value of an appointment setter is more so you feel it when you lose them.
Losing that efficiency.
You lose that, and your revenue just drops. Your business really suffers. So I do think appointment setter values are higher because the risk of losing them is so impactful to your business, is bottom line.
So we have covered everything from sourcing, as vetting,
yep,
onboarding, top closers, and how do you keep them, right? Now, what are the key tactics to then build an entire sales team that can take a business from multi-seven to 8 figures?
I'll tell you what we do. Like, we do workforce planning. So for example, we're having this chat in January. Late December, we had a leadership meeting, and we set our projections for 2026. So we know that we need to hit a certain number of sales this year. And so we just work back on how much do we need to spend on ads, how many leads is that going to be generating, how many appointments do we need to have set from that, how many sales do we need. We reverse engineer our projections as a company to then, how many people, how many bums on seats do we need? So we do forward planning on that, and knowing also we're going to have attrition and turnover. We're constantly recruiting for that. So we know this year I need to hire at least 2 more appointment setters and 2 more closers to hit our targets. And it might need to be 3 or 4 of each because we will have turnover. So workforce planning. So my partner my business partner, also my life partner, Shani. She's good with this stuff. Like she comes from a recruitment background. We're very fortunate because we have a sales training company. So we've got like thousands of reps who we've either placed or we've trained. So we're very fortunate that we've always got an endless supply of great sales talent. Yeah.
I was gonna say, for you guys will be
so
like you're sourcing all your own setters and closers, right? Well,
so what was funny was we've hired a few different roles recently. We've got a media buyer in-house. We've got a content producer, like videographer, editor. And those roles, we're like, holy shit. We now know what it's like to be a business who needs salespeople who doesn't know where the fuck to start.
Yeah.
Like, where do you start finding a videographer or a content producer? Where do you go to find a media buyer who's not shit? What are we even looking for? So we had to learn the hard way. But we followed the same process that we always follow with hiring a salesperson, but we just didn't have the talent pool. Like we didn't have so many good reps who wanted to work for us. So that's what we found was really difficult.
And what are the systems then that can support a sales team to crank $1 million
Dude,
months?
we've got a dialed in high level. I don't know if you use high level,
yeah, we use high
GHL.
level.
So we've got GHL dialed in. We use Kixi for the outbound dialer, which is so high level's great, and you need to have it properly. Use CRM, whatever it is, CRM, HubSpot, high level. Those are probably the only two I'd recommend. And then HubSpot gets so expensive, ridiculously expensive.
Yeah,
so high level is extremely value for money, and it really works. But then there comes a time where, you know, your setters might need to, you need to increase your connect rate.
Your pickup rate.
So Kixi or like Dialer.io, there's one Dialer.io. It's a predictive dialer. So it dials instead of one, you can dial up to 4 or 5 lines at a time. So the first one to pick up, you have the conversation. So instead of you make 100 dials and you've dialed 100 contacts, you've actually dialed 500 contacts, and you might have, instead of a 10% pickup rate, you might have a 25% pickup rate. So which could be money for your business. So I think having a good predictive dialer, having a great CRM, we have AI. So we use Fathom on our Zoom with Zoom. So Fathom's been epic, and there's some automations you can work with to, you know, maybe break down a sales call and get the transcript. And we've got some GPT, or also that's another thing, using AI. So we use AI for things like sending follow-up emails. Here's the transcript. Here's the prompt. You know, let's send a follow-up email that's personalized. Let's get a plan for specific nurture that's going to help this person build their trust and get them across. So using AI in that way, as opposed to sort of calling them to try to get them into an appointment, is better. Yeah, those are the 3 things, or the 4 pieces of technology we're using a lot.
Yeah, definitely AI for that, for analyzing sales calls, just chucking the transcript and hey, just tell me where I constantly do that, get my own feedback on where did things go wrong, where did we lose them, you know, what's the score as well based on all the sales calls. And,
it's great.
And the content that you make out of it.
And the content, dude, you can, so we've got a new copywriter. Getting someone like a copywriter across your business could just be as easy as giving them 20 sales or 100 sales call transcripts with all your prospects. So they know they're getting the mind of your ICP, and then they can create content for all the objections you're getting. Super key.
Which leads perfectly. You're doing a great job at building your personal brand, using content and marketing in general, right, to supercharge your business and getting you in. My guess is, like, based on the strategy that I can see, you guys are using it a lot for recruitment, attracting those people, and to feeding your own marketing as well. So how do you currently use content for your business?
Yeah, well, we've just leveled things up by hiring someone full-time who handles it. Man, the biggest thing we did was start a podcast.
Hey, real quick, if you're a founder, CEO, or business owner looking to build a personal brand, become a thought leader in your space, and attract premium leads, our viral video podcast systems can help. Book a call with the link in the show notes to speak with my viral podcast team today. Now back to the episode.
The best fucking thing we did was start a podcast, and it wasn't my idea, it was Shani. I was kicking and screaming. It was before we actually launched this business that we're in now. We knew we were going to launch a business. We knew we were kind of going to do something. And her idea was to start a podcast. And I was like, fuck that. I'm so busy. We've got so much to do. And, you know, there was a cost involved. Like at the time, we were using an agency. Before. We didn't know about you guys, but we're using an agency.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got the wrong.
Yeah, I got the wrong
one.
I did, man. I wish I knew you before. But honestly, man, like I'd say, it's been insane. It's been a game changer for our company. Now, I'd say 50, 60, 70, 60%, let's say 60% of our students, our sales, have found us through paid media or found us because they clicked on an ad, but they didn't buy immediately. They went and then consumed long form. It was just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And they've built a relationship with us, and they get to the calls and they're sold. So number one is just the podcast. Putting that out weekly has been a huge game changer for us. We send it to the database. We send an email. It's helpful for the sales team to then nurture with. Someone has a specific objection, they can go, cool, we did a podcast on that. Or, hey, this person this person had a similar situation to you, and they send them a specific podcast. Just the other thing we do is we do monthly webinars. So we'll do a top of funnel webinar with a different topic or a different thing. They're very
Webinars are
similar.
cooking right now.
Yeah, dude, it's such a, if you do them well, the book that I've recently read is called One to Many from Jason Fladley.
Of course. Like,
Fucking
yeah.
killer.
Of course. The playbook. Yeah.
Killer. So I was doing them without that, and they were doing well. We were doing pretty well. Taki Moore, who's we've worked with now for a few years, we were following just the playbook that he had, and then I read this book, and I've just this month we had our most successful webinar. We had 220 maybe registrants. We had about 100 show up, and I think we've had at least 20 sales that are attributed to that webinar, maybe
Sick.
more. That was only 2 weeks ago, so we're still kind of feeling the effects of it.
About 20% conversion rate, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, solid.
And it was the first time I'd ever gone through the full offer on the call as well. Every other webinar, it's been like, hey, here's what we kind of do, and also if you're interested, book a call.
So did you send them to book a call, or not direct to checkout or anything like that?
So no, not to check out. We still sent them to book a call because they still have to reply to work with us. But I just was like, here's what we do. I built it up with proof, insights. I built some like epic models, and then I just went through the offer, and then also gave them a time sensitive
Urgency.
offer, and it just went nuts. So it was a
Did
good learning. Hey,
Did you price drop?
price drop? Yeah, we did it. We did a little price drop. Money always kind of. We had added bonuses, but we added a small price drop as well.
And any, so you did bonuses and incentives
Yeah.
on it, right?
Yep.
For the people that did it. Any deposits?
So, as in required from did they have
To
to
book
give
the
a
call, they
deposit?
have to deposit.
No, we didn't do that. No, we didn't. So we just got them to apply that they wanted to get the information. A lot of them had been through the funnel. A lot of them had already spoken to a sales rep, but pretty much everyone who applied has signed. So it's
So
an absolute game changer, man.
Yeah.
The sales team are loving me because people are coming in. They already know the price,
Yeah.
and it's like a hot knife through butter. I'm going to refine it. What's
the price point of that offer?
So it was 9,800, and we reduced it for the one time. It was for 24 hours. It was for 8,800.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did 1,000.
Yes, sick.
yeah.
You got some good conversions out of there.
Fuck
One
yeah,
thing that we
yeah.
have tested is like a sign of that. We started running webinars for one of our podcast partners
Oh, yeah.
because we have built this massive raving fans audience,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want a sales team, and everything so far has been like him doing the
Yeah.
sales. And I was like, dude, we need to take this to be a webinar,
Yeah.
And we have tested a few things in the last ones. Every webinar has generated at this point about 160K so far, right? In deals coming in
amazing.
the back end.
Mm.
And one of the game-changing things was the deposit.
So getting a deposit to book a call,
Yes.
that's dope.
Yeah.
Man, that's so good.
Fully refundable.
Yeah. I love
No
it.
risk.
I love it.
No risk. So
I
just
love it.
just throwing
that's
that
so
in there
cool.
because I
That's so
reckon for
smart.
your offer as well, because you're selling, if the main offer is the B2C as well,
Yeah, it's B2C. Yeah.
that fully refundable, no risk
Mm.
deposit, fucking man, super qualified
Crazy.
deals. Yeah.
Well,
and
Taki's Taki's big thing has been paid webinars, so workshops,
yes.
which it's $100.
Yeah.
This guy, he's so inspiring, but he's been getting hundreds of people to pay him $100 to show up to a workshop.
Liquidating the ad spend. Yeah.
Not only that, like making lots of cash, like lots like making serious cash. I think
On
he
the
had
front end.
1,000. I think might not have been 1,000, but it was hundreds. He had one where he had hundreds of people who'd paid, and then off the back end. So he's gone fully salesless now. So we were kind of not many people can do it, but he can do it really well because he's got such a strong
He's
brand.
been in the game so
So
long.
long.
Like, yeah.
And off the back of it, they've made, I think it was like a 500K, maybe
So
to $1
good.
million webinar.
Yeah,
It was
so good.
wild. But yeah, we found that with our audience, because we're selling an opportunity, they're not solving it. We're not able to get them to the webinar to really help them solve a specific problem. It's really like, hey, it's more of a brochure. It's
Yeah,
like, hey,
it's
here's
a
what this
B-stop,
is.
yeah.
Here's your problem. Here's what this opportunity looks like. Here's
Yeah.
some information about it. Here's what we do. Here's some of the clients we've worked with.
Yeah.
So I think there's a block in my mind to get someone to pay $100 to come to one of those webinars. But I'm going to try it, to be honest. I've decided I'm going to try it maybe next month.
Yeah, and to be clear, the deposit has been for the offer to book the call.
To book the call.
The webinars so far we have kept them free,
Yeah,
but just like paying is just gonna be a way more committed
For sure.
person. Yeah,
for sure, especially when you got a founder who's on the calls as well.
yeah. This is a this or that segment.
Okay.
So you just choose one or the other.
Yeah, sweet.
Tea or coffee,
Coffee,
sushi or steak,
steak,
expert or jack of all trades,
expert,
product or service business,
product,
CEO or founder,
founder,
Instagram or TikTok,
Instagram,
Instagram or LinkedIn,
Instagram,
Instagram or Facebook,
Instagram,
Instagram or X,
Instagram,
Instagram or YouTube,
YouTube,
YouTube or Spotify,
YouTube,
photos or videos,
videos,
short form or long form video content,
long form,
newsletters or podcasting.
podcasting.
My man.
Yeah.
Organic or paid marketing.
Oh, paid.
1 million followers with low conversions or 1,000 raving fans.
1,000 raving fans.
Remote talent versus local talent.
Remote.
Building a talent or hiring a talent.
Hiring a talent. Talent.
A talent at a high price tag or multiple cheap C talent.
Oh, A at a high price, but every day of the week.
Setter or closer.
Oh, I don't want to choose. Probably closer.
Closer or sales manager.
Closer.
Property investing or shares.
Property.
Property or Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin or buying businesses.
Bitcoin.
Building a business or buying a business.
I think buying a business, honestly, but I'm building one, so I'll say building.
Passion.
Because of not because of what you'll get from it, but because of what it will make of you.
Passion 6-figure business or stressful 8-figure business.
Oh, stressful eight-figure business.
Too hard to say no. The most important question: sales or marketing?
Oh, sales every day of the week.
Had to do it.
Yeah.
What's the hardest truth that you have accepted about yourself as a founder?
I think that this is hard. I used to think of myself as someone who was ready, fire, aim. Ready, fire, aim. So just get out there and do it. But what I've realized is that I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And that definitely holds me back from getting shit out there. So it took me years and years to build this business, or actually to get this business out there. And I'd been meaning to do what we're doing now for many years. And it wasn't until I met my partner, Shani, who is ready, fire, aim. That's her MO. Like, she's not she's like the opposite of a perfectionist. That we actually got the business started. And there's a part of me that would love to just be that, like, just get out there and do it. But I think I need that in my life. I need her, because that complements me a lot. And then I compliment her in a different way.
What's the hardest part of being in a relationship with your co-founder?
Oh, dude, it's probably trying to switch off. Just having a normal life and having conversations that don't involve work, to reduce the nervous system, to close the nervous system down a little bit and just relax.
What's the best part of being in a relationship with your co-founder?
well, dude, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. So we're both working towards a shared vision. We're on the same journey together. We get to experience the highs together, and we get to support each other through the lows. I've now met so many founders who are partners in the environments we've been in. And I'm convinced that when you get the right person, it's better to be in business with that person than not. In my experience, in my opinion.
After making millions of dollars, what's the most painful lesson you have learned scaling a business?
Don't take personal guarantees. Sign less personal guarantees. So my previous business, that went into liquidation. It was a fitness company, went into liquidation, and I just signed fucking heaps of personal guarantees. Also, don't buy Range Rovers before you actually invest in property. That was another thing I did. I just took personal guarantees out. Car, there was debt that we took on that I was personally guaranteed to. We had a business I was just spending money hand over fist. We ultimately went under, and it wasn't until we went under that I actually learned what a personal guarantee was. I'd been signing them, and so a lot of the company debt became my debt because the company was liquidated, and now I was carrying this debt. So I now had all these creditors to negotiate with. So I had, I had this amount of asset in my cash in bank or shares and whatever. My asset was this much, and then my debt was like this much. And so that was a shock. It was a hard time. It was a tough time. So that would be my lesson.
How did you overcome that time?
Oh, I had to grow, man. I was in that situation because of ego and a poor business model. And I overcame it just by having an ego death. My identity was aligned to being a business owner, a successful entrepreneur. And that's how I gained my self-esteem. I was holding on to that. It was very much externally attached to the business that I ran. And when I didn't have the business, who the fuck was I? Who am I? What worth do I bring? What value do I bring to the world if I'm not Kris, the entrepreneur, the business owner? So, yeah, learning to then love myself without needing to be successful took years of work and still a process. But yeah, I think I came away from that 10 times better person. And that's how I've met my partner. That's how I've now been able to build a family, build an amazing business now, which I don't think I would have been able to do as the person who I was before all that happened.
That's awesome, man. What are the 3 most powerful questions a founder can ask himself to scale a business to 8 figures?
Well, I think firstly, do you want to build a business do you want to build an 8-figure business? Like, why are you building it? Because it's a bloody tough journey. And often you shouldn't. Often it's like build a lifestyle business because there'll be a lot of things to sacrifice. Another is, what is the type of life that you want to live? Do you want to have time with your kids and family, or do you want to be working a lot? And then I think third one is, what's the support mechanism you have around you? So for us, we've got full-time nanny. Our parents don't live up here on the Goldie with us. So, but also now Shani wants to, Shani doesn't want to lose her mother years as well. So we're grappling with how aggressive do we want to go with growth versus how much life do we want to live. And also making sure you take some off the top and you start to build your own personal wealth as well. That was something I didn't focus on my last business that we're focused on a lot now.
What's the worst business advice you have ever received?
I got some business advice from an old accountant who told me that I was okay to buy a Range Rover. Like we were doing good revenue at the time. I think we were doing 300K, 400K a month, maybe 350. And it was a fitness company, but our profit was terrible because our COGS were so high because it was an agency. I was paying personal trainers percentage. And I was like, dude, I really want a Range Rover. It's been my goal in life. I've always wanted one. We're doing good numbers, top line. He's like, yeah, I think we could make that work. He was my accountant. I think we could make that work. I was like, that was all I needed. I went and got the Rangy, and that just was a signified. There were so many things going on. I was driving a Range Rover. My personal trainers were getting paid $35 an hour. So there was an immediate sort of disparity between that unrelatability. The vendors that I was working with, I was paying rent to the gym owners. They saw I was driving a Range Rover. So then they had when I tried to renegotiate my rent to bring it down a bit to make the business model work better, they were like, dude, you're fucking making heaps of cash. And then plus it was just costing. It was just fleecing the business. And he should have said no. He should have said no. And funny thing was, I interviewed a guy I knew from back in the day on our podcast, who had the same accountant, and we both have some. He had a way worse story than what I had. So that would be it.
You certainly want a great accountant.
You need a good accountant who's financially responsible, but also knows your numbers. And the guy who we were working with just didn't know the numbers very well. And so that was a good lesson. Have a good accountant.
Opposite to that, what's the best business advice you have ever received?
Sell through your customer. So one of my good friends, Benny, who was a business, kind of introduced me to this closing space. He runs a business at a high ticket business, sells coaching to property business owners. He was so ruthlessly committed to having a really high reputation and making sure the positive online reputation of his business was represented through his clients and all of the reviews that he would get. And he would do anything to protect that reputation. And it was just made life easy as a salesperson, building a sales team, because just everything out there was just positive. There were negative things that would come out, but we would fix it and we would do anything to fix it. So I really embodied that. And I think that's a big reason why we've had a lot of success, is because of we just have such high trust because of our online reputation. It's just growing and growing and growing, and we're protecting it because we deliver such a strong service. So we're so ruthlessly committed to getting client results. It's not just about marketing and sales and just getting people in the front end and then fucking them over. It's about really giving client experience first and having that as our compass.
Ultimately, whoever cares the most is the one that will make the most money, the one that will keep the customer the longest, and the one that will rise at the top of their industry.
Couldn't agree more.
If we take everything away from you, everything that is online, all your podcasts, all your content, everything, what will be the one thing that you will leave for other founders to build a better business, scale to 8 figures and beyond, and ultimately live a better life?
As an advice, have kids. Have kids. It's helped me. It just really helped ground me. And I feel like I'm showing up as a better leader because I have a lot more purpose. I heard Dane Walker talk about it when he was in a tight spot. I think it wasn't until he had kids that he said he switched on, and that was the ignition that got him to that next level, because he now had a greater purpose other than himself. And I think I feel the same.
Kris, it has been awesome to have you on the podcast. Where can people find you, learn about you, get your help, and ultimately connect with you?
Dude, Instagram, Kris Cochrane, at Kris Cochrane, Kris Cochrane. YouTube, you can just Google me or look me up on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but yeah, Instagram is probably the best. And remotesalesinstitute.com.
As per usual, all the links will be down below. If you enjoyed this episode, all I ask, share it with other founders and business owners. If you haven't subscribed, of course, hit that button, and I will see you on the next episode. How was that?
Great, dude. Yeah, good.
That was awesome, dude.
Yeah, man, it was deep.
Hey legends, my goal with Founders Playbook is to help 1 million entrepreneurs build successful personal brands and businesses so that they can increase their impact and profits. You can support the mission by simply sharing the podcast with other founders and entrepreneurs. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on social media. Let's get to work.